pleasure, yes. Yeah, I love sharing my experience in China and the story behind it, so it's really my great pleasure.
Before we get to your decades of work in China, I think we'd like to get to know you better. Like, could you just tell us, where in the States are you originally from?
Well, I'm from New York, from the near suburbs of New York City. I went to school both in Massachusetts and upstate New York and Manhattan and Taiwan, China. I studied history and Chinese undergraduate and business school graduate, and I've been living here in Beijing since 1979.
1979, that is remarkable. So, I guess this is a really good question. In 1979, China wasn't on a lot of Americans' radar. Most Americans, in my opinion, barely knew China existed. What made you decide at that time, you know what, I want to start a business in China?
Okay, well, this story started before that. And I started university in the early 70s in 1972, which was the first year that the U.S. and China started having some dialogue when Henry Kissinger came to China and they started talking about the Shanghai Communique. And I was so interested in what was happening in that very exotic, unknown country that I decided to start studying Chinese history. And every day the newspaper and my history textbooks would intersect, and there was so much history unfolding that it became more and more exciting. And I decided I needed to study Chinese language to really understand what was going on there. So I began my Chinese studies at one of the very few Chinese language programs in the United States at that time at Cornell University. And it was an intensive Chinese course, and it was a 10-week course. 5 of us started out, and 3 of us were left at the end of 10 weeks. So very few people in America were studying Chinese at that time. And frankly, I had no idea it was going to result in a lifelong career and passion. But I continued my studies later in Taiwan, came back in China and the U.S., continued it and intensified the conversation, and it looked like there was an opportunity that was going to happen at the intersection of U.S.-China relations. So I started to figure out how can I be part of it, and decided at first to go to business school for my graduate education, and then did everything I could to get myself over. But I did not know where it was going to lead. When I got here, it seemed like the world was potential. Everything was possible. Everything needed doing. And it was so exciting to be part of thinking about how I could be part of it and how I could contribute.
I think today's China, and obviously I wasn't in China in the 1980s, but 1980s China, from what I've heard from others...
You weren't anywhere in the 1980s. You were a twinkle in your parents' eye in the 1980s.
I was alive in the 1980s. I was watching, cartoons on my living room floor and playing with Legos.
That's good too, yeah.
What was it like in 1980s China before, at the cusp, just after reform and opening up was starting out?
Well, as I said, it felt like everything was potential. Beijing was a sea of bicycles and dust storms in the spring, and it was a magical place, but very, very different from what it is now. Restaurants closed down at 7 o'clock, they were all stayed on. All of the American